Hi, everybody. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm one of the co-directors of the Notebooks Collective. Founded in 2021, we are a virtual literary art space focused on community connection and continued learning. We are so honored and excited to be here tonight with all of you in memory of Jennifer Marteilli. Our next in conversation will feature Dorsía Smith Silva and Vincent Toro on August 18th at 7:30 p.m. Please check our website, or even better, sign up for our newsletter to learn more. Rebecca will drop those links in the chat. The Notebooks Collective believes that Black Lives Matter and that we have a responsibility to undo harm and at the same time uplift joy. We acknowledge that as a virtual organization, our offices are on the lands of the Kickapoo, Nipmunk, Agawam, Massachusetts, and Pawtucket tribes. Native peoples across the world continue to preserve and celebrate their cultures, and we encourage you to support Native writers and artists. As we do this land acknowledgement, we want to recognize those who are suffering from conquest and terror across the globe and in our own country. We want to acknowledge that today abortion is protected in less than half of the states in the United States. We are glad you have joined us tonight to be together, and we are grateful that you are helping us raise money for the Eastern Massachusetts Abortion Fund. I'm now going to turn it over to Becca.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca, and pronouns are she, her, and I'm the other half of the Notebooks Collective. Today marks the 4th anniversary of Dobbs, an event that can be easily overlooked considering the barrage of bad news we receive daily. It is frightening to see our government so hostile to the people's right to abortion. I know you all know this, but it seems appropriate to take a moment and reflect on the damage done and what is at stake, how we must be vocal and unashamed and persistent. And I think the poet's voice as witness and testimony is so important, and Jenn's voice in particular was brilliant and unabashed. We met Jenn because Kathi Aguerro invited her to be in conversation back in November 2022, when Lisa and I were only a year into this venture. There are so many ways of knowing Jenn, and even as someone more on the outer rings of her universe, I always gravitated towards Jenn's warmth and kindness, and oh my goodness, her poems. I'm so glad we'll hear her voice through some of the readers tonight to bring her into this space where we hold her dearly in our memory. I'm going to invite Kathi Aguerro, friend, mentor, poet, to do a brief intro of Jenn and to start this amazing reading. Thank you. Kathi?
Thank you. First, thank you, Lisa and Rebecca of the incredible Notebooks Collective. I hope everyone here signs up for their newsletter and events. But thank you for organizing and hosting this fundraiser in Jennifer Marteilli's name, and for inviting me to be part of it. Jenn was a strong advocate for women's rights, a feminist, and she would have been delighted to know you had organized this benefit in her name to defend women's rights to control their own bodies. If you read the bio sent with the registration link, you have some idea of Jenn's many accomplishments. Although to fully understand what an astounding poet she is, you need to read her work, and I urge you to do so. I won't take your time now to go over her many publications and awards, but let me say she was a brilliant and original poet. I've reread several of her books many times in preparation for reviewing them. But no matter how I tried, I could never discover how she works her magic. Her poems seem to jump from subject to subject, but somehow everything comes together by the end. There is never a predictable line in any of Jenn's poems. Psychic Party Under the Bottle Tree from Lily Review Press was her last book, published during her lifetime, but she completed 2 other manuscripts before she died, and I believe they're currently under review. A strong supporter of other poets, she served, along with Cindy Veach, as poetry co-editor of Mom Egg Review, and Marjorie Tesser, who's here, is the main editor. Proud of her Italian heritage, although she did admit sometimes to being part Irish, she organized with Julia Lasella the Italian American Writers Association reading series in Boston's North End. She attended the readings of all her poet friends and cheered us on. Jenn was fiercely political and very funny, and often combined the two. She wrote her own obituary, including this sentence, I quote, "She was devoted to progressive causes and cannot believe that this thing in the White House outlived her." I met Jenn about 10 years ago when I first moved to Salem. Like everyone who met her, I loved her immediately. Many readers, such as Cindy Veach, Marjorie Tesler, Hannah Larrabee, and probably many of you watching this from your home computers, knew her much longer than I. But she had an embracing warmth and vitality that made you soon feel she was your good friend and you were hers. She loved cats, particularly her own cat, Maria, and had a reasonable, in my opinion, fear of snakes and was afraid of driving over bridges. She was a coffee aficionado. For a time, a group of North Shore poets, who now call ourselves the Thursday Poets, met at a well-known Salem cafe that had lots of atmosphere but terrible coffee. Jen would smuggle her own coffee in, order a pot of tea, I think that's how she did it, and manage to pour her home-brewed coffee into the empty cup. During one of her early chemo sessions, she happened to be at Mass General the same time as my husband. I walked over to oncology to visit Jen and got useful information to bring back to Richard. The vanilla ice cream is terrible. If any of you are at MGH, remember to order the chocolate. When she and I were invited to In Conversation by this very Notebooks collective, we carefully planned and organized our questions to one another. Then promptly forgot all that once we were on Zoom and just tumbled over one another in our excitement. She bore her illness and treatment with such courage and grace that, although I knew how ill she was, I was still shocked by her death. And even today, expect to hear her distinctive laugh as she enters the new cafe with better coffee where our group now meets. This is a little hard. I miss Jen a lot. We all miss Jen terribly as both poet and friend. Thank you, Becca and Lisa, once again for this opportunity to honor her by supporting a cause she passionately supported. Let's fight on, all of us, in her memory. I will be reading a poem from Psychic Party, Under the Bottle Tree, her last book, and in many ways, her most vulnerable book. Dr. Martin's, oh, I just want to say something. She loved these boots. And MP Carver, who can't be here because she's reading somewhere else, actually found a pair and ordered them for Jen to be from all of us. But they didn't arrive before Jen passed. Dr. Martin's 1460 Wild Botanica. What I want is that 8-eye boot with Goodyear welt lines on the sole. I want the backhand black leather and the overgrown wild flower print, and all that pink and green flora and fauna. These boots dig in, webbed all over with datura, poppy, Japanese anemone, poison ivy, foxglove, and then the things that feed and crawl and fly. Moth, scorpion, black widow, wasp. I'd switch out the factory laces with Loden green, a corset going up each foot to the ankle. I want the crisscross to show. Sometimes I want to smoke again and feel that hot toxin sting the bony roof of my mouth. But I made a vow to never again buy leather. I'd love not to harm any living thing, though I still eat fat shrimp, all curled over as if in pain. As if in pain. The sunny yolk inside a warm brown egg. I'll buy eggs just to paint them. I'll smoke bees out of a hive to make honey and wax to burn down all night. I'll call the meat of a cow flesh just to ruin your meal. Here is the truth of these boots. I want you to think they're pretty, Get close to me. Believe me when I say I'm good. It's my pleasure to introduce the next reader, Hannah Larrabee.
Thank you, Kathleen. That was so beautiful. I think we all felt that deeply. So thank you. Yeah, it's part of the local Salem sort of North Shore group with Jennifer for many years. And we ran into each other all the time at Porter Mills Studios doing ekphrastic events and things of that nature. And she read a poem there that sank very deeply into my soul, I guess you could say. It's called Land Masses. Um, it's on Incessant Pipe. I'll drop the link in here when I'm done. You can hear her read it in her own voice, and there's nothing better than that. But it was about the last day the continents touched each other, and she had this stunning image of horses, wild horses running down the coastline just before the continents broke apart. And it's all about slowly leaving. And it's so incredible, the poem. And it sits within me, I think, forever. So I want to be brave, and I'm not going to read that poem, but I am reading a poem in conversation with it, um, about sort of a strange geologic thing that I think she would have liked to know about. This is called Northern Appalachian Anomaly. It might explain the longevity of these ancient mountains, usually worn flat to plains by now. Instead, they are rising, buoyant, a superheated rock float underneath, the dense root of the entire mountain range eroding from some artifact of anger, some memory of the tectonic violence. And supposedly it's moving west and might one day push up our beloved New York City 10 to 15 million years from now. Imagine it, the last day before the tips of the city rise from the ocean. Yes, there is a last day for everything. Last day for a well-worn pair of Doc Martens. And I am missing the poems of you every time a certain news cycle passes. What brilliant thing would you say about the algae-plagued reflecting pool? And in this way, we are still writing with you. Our wild horses spooked but free enough to gallop and make known with their throats something is not quite right. What we want to say is drifting from us like continents, or lifting from the raw heat at the core. You've taught us that this is when words break free from their stalls, like water from a source, or mountains from a collision so massive. It's the smallness itself that saves us. Thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Leah Umansky.
Wow, Hannah, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much. My poem's on the computer. Let me minimize this. I had a hard time deciding whether I was going to read a political poem from a tyrant in Jenn's honor because, well, everyone knows why Jenn was so vocal about her feelings and what she was passionate about. And really struck a chord with me. But then I also discovered with Jenn and becoming her friend that she's such an advocate of other women. And I'm going to read a poem instead that has to do with girlhood. This is called Ars Poetica Girlhood. It's forthcoming in the Patterson Literary Review. Ars Poetica Girlhood. I want to write a poem for the little girl at the Robert H. Treeman State Park. I want to write a poem for that girl and the way her fear brought her to the edge of the diving board, where she stood looking out at her father in the watering hole, out at the vast expanse of waterfall to her right, and the families, children, and tourists to her left, staring at her, studying her. I want to write a poem for that little girl who stood at the very edge of the diving board, then sat her body down, terrified, contemplating. Then, as if in a movie, the lens zooms out to the people around her, faceless from where I stand, like a Prendergast painting. Everyone starts to clap and shout. She looks out, stands up at the bounciest bit, as if to jump, but turns around to walk down and off the diving board. It is quiet. Girlhood is scary enough, The body is scary. Boys are scary. Friendships are scary. No one needs this extra push off and over. Her father comes out of the water and I watch him walk away. I am stunned. No hug, no kiss, no words of wisdom. I stand waiting in the water, soaking up the sun with my sister and Coco. Fear is powerful. Everyone is talking about the girl. She couldn't be more than 7, maybe 8, but then I see her get back on the serpentine line behind the board. This time it is different. This time, 2 other girls are with her, talking with her, and I watch her fear turn to laughter. Girlhood can be powerful, is full of power and charm, and I watch it spark with my own 2 eyes. We all watch her for what seems like eternity, and then she is back at square one at the board's edge. She turns back to look at her 2 new friends and then squeezes her thumb and index finger around her nose and jumps 25 feet deep into the water. Everyone cheers. It is a moment frozen in time, away from the rest of the world and its horrors, tucked in the gorge, away from the chaos of these days. She is smiling as she swims to the stairs and out of the water. Sometimes it is a scary thing that brings the biggest joy. Sometimes we fail, and sometimes our failure carries us away from fear, into friendship, community, into the beauty of a moment we ordinarily don't see. That girl, her friends, the whole watering hole of people, the collective is what makes us human, is what makes us feel alive, vital, as one. But there is no one girl. We are together, all the girls. And next up, I have the honor of introducing Cindy Veach. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. And thank you, everybody who's here, and to Lisa and Rebecca. This is such a beautiful way to honor Jenn. And Kathi, thank you for your intro. It was just perfect. You really captured her. I'm going to read a poem from Jenn's chapbook, Dear Justice, which was published by Gray Book Press. I think it was 2024. Dear Amy Coney Barrett, have you ever wept when someone you don't know is kind to you? The nurse who held my hand during my second abortion said the quick loss of pregnancy hormones could have caused my weeping. The doctor had such smooth, dark skin and a pure white beard. It was as if a waxing or waning moon hovered between my legs. He was kind too and said, almost done, almost done. He sounded like the tide. I did your chart, the Friday you were born. The moon was humped, gibbous. Astronomers called it a moon giant. Astrologers say you have great willpower, dislike almost every change. You have the choice to show your love with actions. When your moon is in Cancer, you have the choice to inflict great harm. Amy, we were both born on aquarium cusps, sharp points of a moon's crescent hook. I'm being very intrusive now, but under your black robe, you should wear Aquarius blue, around your neck, a plum gemstone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa. Anne Marie Oomen couldn't be here this evening. Becca, will you spotlight me while I
Yes, I will. Sorry.
But she sent a poem, and I am really honored to read part of it. It is a very long prose pantoum, and I hope that everyone can read it at some point because it's beautiful. And I will tell you where it is published. It is excerpted from the anthology, The Overturning. We'll try to drop that link in just a little bit, but I'm going to read just the last part of it. So this is by Anne Marie Oomen, and it is part of the prose pantoum, The Lake Turns Over, a prose pantoum on love and cold water. In the end, the lake has turned over in love. We were invited to enter, to live. Always shocking, that holy cooling, beloved waters touching us with its old knowing. Yes, we will all die, but love runs its fingers through a cold order to let us know we are alive. Here is our union, Cold coalesce, currents of feeling, bodies rising, seeing, call it a forgiving. We will always be shattered, our old selves scattered as ice-colored beach glass on the sun-laden shore. We are invited, always, to turn love over, to test the cold of being. And I will now turn this over to Danika Stegman.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone who's read so far. I did not know Jennifer directly, but I knew people who were very affected by her, and it seemed like an amazing cause. I'm going to read a poem from my book, Oblation, which was featured in Mom Mag Reviews bookshelf when it came out, which I was deeply, deeply grateful for. This is a cento, which is a poem that's composed entirely of other people's lines. All of these lines have the word heart in them. I wanted to read the cento partly because it seems like an event for community, and it's kind of a cento is a form that embraces community in the ways that we're linked to one another. I do like to read the sources for the lines when I read this poem. So I'm going to read the names of the people who originally wrote the lines in the order. And so the name of the person who wrote it goes in the order that the lines go in the poem. So I'll read the sources and then I'll read the poem itself. Robert Creeley, Sylvia Plath, William Shakespeare, George Oppen, James Baldwin, Eric Nelson, who was the defense attorney in the trial of Derek Chauvin, Radiohead, Kid Dakota, C.D. Wright, Hanif Abdurraqib, Harriet Mullen, Reginald Dwayne Betts, At the Drive-In, Elliott Smith, Bessel Vanderkoop, Sparkle Horse, Blonde Redhead, George Harrison, Otto Lux, Shannon Lay, Lee Bai, Christopher Deweese, Zachary Schomburg, Langus Largus, E.E. Cummings, Sun Young Shin, The Knife, Tom Waits, The Bible, Emily Dickinson, Elizabeth Bishop, and Mazzy Star. So my thanks to those writers and artists, with the exception of Eric Nelson. No thanks to that guy. Okay, heart rate cento. In the construction of the chest, there is a heart, and I am aware of my heart. It opens and closes its bowl of red blooms out of sheer love of me. I cannot heave my heart into my mouth. Of the heart, they say too much, the heart, the heart. I am terrified at the moral apathy, the death of the heart, which is happening here in my country, to further compromise an already compromised heart. A heart that's full up like a landfill, deep in the heart of the land. Look into the dark heart and you will see what the dark eats other than your heart. The actual heart is an ugly machine. It doesn't stir the heart like a true wild rose. Admit that the heart, though not useless, lacks the thing needed for some miracles. I had a friend whose heart was too heavy to hold. Yes, there's blood on the median like a boat without oars. Nobody broke your heart, broke your own. Heart rate variability is shaped by trauma. Oh yeah, I got a heart of darkness. Won't you feel for me from your heart? There in your heart, something that's never changing. It's time to decide while my heart mourns. I sit heart-stricken at the bloom, in between a heart and home. Today, I will say my fears into a molting bag and let them mean away in there, as doom means doom and love means love, while I'm waiting here, calibrating my heart. I found your beating heart half buried in the woods. Yard sale heart, just like mine. I carry your heart with me. I carry it in my heart. Crowned in our sins, velvet hearts. And you kept us awake with wolves' teeth, sharing different heartbeats. Lay your head where my heart used to be, and I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. Heart, we will forget. Some relaxed, uncondescending stranger, the heart's release. And while the fireflies are failing to illuminate these nightmare trees, leave my heart down by the water. Thank you. And now I have the honor of introducing Brandel France de Bravo.
Thank you. What a beautiful cento, and a great selection for today. Thanks for having me. I'm going to read When Was My Anger Conceived by Jenn, and it appeared in the year of Ferraro. I think that was the only place it appeared, but I could be wrong. When was my anger conceived? The summer of assassinations? By the man-made lake? A hole so shallow and muddy all the men held hands, formed a human net, and walked toward each other to the center to feel for some kid who might have gone under. There, on its shore, in the Kodak, me, in my little terry cloth bikini, all round as the moon's stomach. I'd worn a Batman mask attached by a thin rubber band all summer. My hands fisted, the nails bit crescents in my palms. The summer of my monarchy, I stood against the lazy Susan in the kitchen and watched the president resign on the small TV. I cried because of the cramps and blood, the garter belt biting me. My mother said we'd never see this again, and she was wrong. Even married to my father, she couldn't predict the depth of a man's rage. A year after my abortion, the clinic 3 stops down from my dorm, 3 quick stops on the Green Line, and no one shot there yet, but escorts needed. 1 pink set of rosaries flung at my face. That year, the year of Ferraro, my aunt said she wouldn't vote for anything that menstruated, could get pregnant, could bear a child. Thank you.
Next up is
Sorry, I'm so sorry. This next up is Wendy Wisner passing the mic. Sorry, Wendy.
Oh yeah, I got confused for a second. Thank you so much for inviting me, Lisa and Rebecca. I didn't know Jenn personally, but I'm a huge fan of her wondrous, fierce poems. And I really appreciate her vocal opposition to the Trump administration in her poems and in her, posts and stuff like that. So I'm going to read a poem of mine about the times we are living in, and it was written right before Trump was elected for a second term. So that wonderful moment in history. It's called Violence. It's October, and all I see is violence. The pink, fleshy undersides of fallen red leaves. Morning sun piercing through a toothy gap in the neighbor's trees. The grassy hill by the school licked with sunlight and yellow leaves. But all I see are texts from my mother lighting up my phone, and news rife with lies and accusations. A former president in love with a dictator. A child killed, dismembered, thrown in a lake. When I don't answer my mother's texts, she calls and calls, 12 voicemails in 1 hour, then the call from her aide saying she's clogged the kitchen sink again. In the next room, my children play guitar, their soft fingers dented by wiry strings. My phone lights up with more news. Maybe they've found a cure for the disease that's firing through my mother's brain. Maybe the dictator won't be elected. Maybe thoughts and prayers, our children can remain on land, living whole. And Now I have the honor of introducing our next reader, the wonderful Sarah Kain Gutowski.
Thank you. And thank you to Lisa and Rebecca for not only organizing this, but asking me to be a part of it. I'm so happy to. I would like to give a content warning for sexual assault, although this poem is going to tell its slant. One of the many important reasons that abortion should be legal and safe is, of course, in the case of rape. So the poem I'm going to read was written in response to the song Meticulous Bird by the band Tao and the Get Down, Stay Down, in which Tao Nguyen addresses her own experience of sexual assault and reclaims her body through lyrics and music. The video for this song takes place in a grocery store, so the poem is interacting with that part of Nguyen's art as well. And it will be published by Agape Editions in a forthcoming anthology of ekphrastic poetry that responds to music titled We Are the Weirdos. And the poem itself is titled Who Handled the Evidence and When? From 6-inch pots of pothos, sweet potato vine, and alarm hued carnations contain what must be protected. Here is the outer perimeter: shopping cart, bouquet wells, sanitation stand, discount shelves. Inner perimeter: the bakery, a buffer. The integrity of neon buttercream. Protect the scene. Barricade. No one enters. No one leaves. In the snack and coffee aisle, separate witnesses. There were no witnesses. Jamaican dark, roast, Earl Grey tea. I walked into his apartment. Focal point 1, the bed. Focal point 2, his breath. Cheddar crackers, meringue cookies. Focal point 3, his hands. Focal point 4, the brush. Focal point 5, it was too dark to see. Turn right, seafood, frozen, scrod, sketch the scene, layout, dimensions, location. Large chicken breasts, sausage, ropes, soup bar, olive bar. Who handled the evidence? Sell by date, record and mark. Sliced deli meats, stacks of pita, naan. No evidence. Who handled the crime scene? Dairy aisle, milk gallons, sliced Munster, an arm backlit by the freezer, an outline. Who entered? Who left? Record and mark. Buy the processed bread. Stand in line. Check out. Bag the items. My body, the crime scene. Return to it. Take it back. In my mouth, chalk, the taste and grit. Thank you. And now the wonderful Cynthia Marie Hoffman, who is one of my favorites.
Thank you for that powerful poem, Sarah. I'm grateful to be part of this collective this evening, honoring Jenn and her work. I'm going to be reading a poem of mine from my second collection, Paper Doll Fetus, which speaks in many different voices over hundreds of years around the history of medicine and birth. This poem is in the voice of a family friend who was very young when she lost her mother to a burst ectopic pregnancy. It occurs in probably the late 1940s. Poor Christina. If grief has no name, then it is not grief. When I was very young, the casket was drawn into the sunroom. The light flushed its wooden planks as if it were a dock, simple and orderly as any other, lengthening toward infinity. My father's legs buoyed his body through the room as flotsam through water. When my mother's blood spilled, it was invisible. No mop was sufficient to collect it. They tried to explain the sister I could have had, but didn't. There was a passageway inside my mother, What kind it was and where it led, I was not told. But if you held a straw to your eye, you could have seen my sister lodged inside. How did they know it was a girl if she could fit inside a straw? Am I supposed to feel sorry for her more than for my mother because she could not come into the world? But what was the world? I was sent to live on the farm. My grandmother was deaf. She never hugged me. It was like she couldn't hear how to do it. The wheelbarrow wobbled along, clacking its cargo of garden tools, and the chickens sank their talons into the crinkling hay. There was the sound of cans in the kitchen chiming, and the thunk of cans anchored with beans. My mother's name was Violet, and I could say it as many times as I wanted. On the farm, I got the scarlet fever, and the wind from the fields barreled into my room. The curtains flapped at my arms, rough as skirts of twine. The strawberry of my swollen tongue shut tight inside my mouth. I was a husk too long past harvest. My grandmother's tiny body in the chair. Poor child, poor Scarlatina. No one said that. I made it up. And when I shut my eyes, I saw my sister, the button that undid our lives. It hurt my heart, the scarlet fever. All of it hurt my heart. If your grief has no name, then give it one. Poor Christina, my father used to say. It was not my mother's name. It was not my name. And next, I'm pleased to welcome Frances Donovan.
Thank you. Thanks to the organizers of the Notebook Collective and to everybody who came to honor Jenn. I think the first time I noticed Jenn was at the Mass Poetry Festival. She was in a panel on artists in recovery or poets in recovery. And one of the last things she did for me was to invite me to be part of a video series about just that topic. But in between, I really enjoyed knowing her as a poet and as a human being. As people have said, she was very generous with her time, her excuse me, and her resources. Just to go to show that Facebook is not entirely evil, I did connect with Jenn to interview her for the Rumpus for her book, My Tarantella, which I highly recommend. There's some really excellent stuff about Kitty Genovese, the woman who was stabbed 48 times. It turns out that the bystander effect is actually a bit of a myth. And the thing that I didn't know is that this particular killer had already killed a Black woman, but that there had been absolutely no attention to it. This is called Necropoli. I drive home up the arm bone of Cape Cod, and the Sagamore Bridge rises before me, a humped moon, unlit. What do you say to someone whose cancer comes back? I mean, after complimenting his good looks. We had agreed not to utter the word president for 4 years, and we spoke of Queens, how expensive even the outer boroughs have become. I talked about the shape of Cape Cod, how it points back at the rest of us in Massachusetts. I've always distrusted the red bogs down here. Over dinner, we discussed the stone circles the Celts left all over Britain and France. Were they calendars or temples, necropoli? Were they infrastructure projects, endless construction, wood, then stone, then sunlight, then moonlight? What's changed when the solstice angle returns to light the slaughter stone? Who would be alive? Would we still be angry? And now I have the privilege of introducing José Ángel Araguz.
Hello, everyone. That was lovely. Thank you, Frances. I didn't have a chance to know Jennifer personally, but I'm honored to read her work tonight. I have been following it, and I'm excited to show her work as a fellow poet and to join all of you in carrying her words forward. I'm going to be reading a poem called Dear Blank. It's one of her like letter poems, and by a blank I mean like obviously blank, but I won't say it when I read the poem. And well, the reason I'm sharing it is what moves me about the poem is the way a private memory opens onto an entire country. The poem deals with the scene from The Shining, and from there becomes a way of looking at American vastness, predatory power, and the persistence of patriarchal violence. Jenn, in her just gift in this art, names the speaker's abortion plainly as part of a lived history rather than as a spectacle or abstraction. And the poem finally returns us to the body through hunger and the relief of being able to eat. And so this poem is called Dear. Today, to ease my anxiety, I thought of the scariest scene in The Shining. Remember, we saw it at the movies our last spring together, just after my abortion, and the hostage crisis only 6 months old. It wasn't the sister ghosts or the ghost in the green bathtub. It was the opening scene. It was the vastness of America and those mountains as the little Volkswagen crossed the divide into a place so big, so deep, only a helicopter or bald bird of prey could follow the road and understand what kind of country this was. And then, at the movie's very end, that old photograph hanging on the wall of the haunted hotel. Jack Nicholson in the foreground, July 4th, 1921. His eyes, the eyes of a raptor. He'd always been there, celebrating America's birthday. I see you in many men, angry men, bloated, omnipresent, powerful, afraid of their own impossible hungers. I was so hungry after not eating for 6 weeks. Do you remember the fatted calf down the street from the clinic? That rare burger in the plastic basket filled with thick fries? Finally, I could keep something down. It is my honor to introduce the next poet, Katherine D. Oldmixon Garza. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be here. I didn't know Jenn personally. I have a connection with her through Mom Egg Review, which published a poem that I'm going to read for you. And I'm thinking how many people must have that same connection. So perhaps this poem can represent those who aren't here to read, who also were touched by her through Mom Egg Review. The poem is in The Change. This is from 2016. And I think it's the last poem that I published before a 7-year silence because my husband died very suddenly in 2016. I was kind of shocked when I opened the book and realized that this was probably the last poem. So for Jenn, presente, post haste. I never miss my period. The last time I remember seeing it was in Japan. A tsunami on a train, not sitting for fear it would out me. Of course, it had gone missing before, 4 times, but then the absence meant something present. This time, after the floods, it just slipped away, like afterbirth or childhood, like albumin pouring through my fingers when I separate it from the yolk in my palm. I imagine I am pregnant with time, my blood coursing through my sons and daughters, my grandbabies. I suppose my body fills and empties still, but it is with the whole night sky. I'm honored to introduce Richard Hoffman.
Thank you very much. Jenn was a friend, and we spoke a lot about politics. In fact, we And we never argued. There was nothing to argue about, but well, I'm going to just cut to the chase and read this poem, which was a poem I had shown her, and I think she was the only person who liked it. It's the setup is in the title. It's called Sign in the Underground Municipal Garage, Boston, Massachusetts. Some of you may have seen this sign. It says, Dial 411. Report suspicious behavior. What is happening? Who is doing it? Where are they doing it? When did you notice it? Why is it suspicious? The Dow Jones broke 38,000 for the first time in history. The Standard & Poor's Index, the simplest measure of international wealth, set a new record too. The poor move as they must, fleeing violence, fleeing fire, fleeing flood. War is what is happening. Famine is what is happening. Money made by money, not money made by work, determines worth, value, rank, and money made by making ever more murderous weapons is the money that makes the most money. Every morning there are 1 million more refugees crisscrossing the earth. Slaughter in Gaza is being compared to previous slaughters in order to decide what to call it. That's what is happening. Think tanks, PACs, legislators, judges, investment bankers, private equity, military contractors, arms dealers, day traders, real estate developers. That's who is doing it. Where are they doing it? On Wall Street, in D.C., in the newspapers, on TV, on the web, in the sky in an F-16. All my life, a bit at a time. That's when I noticed it. Even as a child, whether I had the words for it or not. What's suspicious about it is how suspicious the sign goads me to be of anything I can't explain or account for, of anyone I didn't expect to see, and that this call is being recorded. Yes, thank you. Yes, 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 I'll wait right here. And I'd like now to introduce Ellen Austin Lee.
This has been an amazing reading. So thank you to everyone who's already read. And I wanted to repeat for the people that came on after we had our backstage instructions that my heart goes out to all the friends, all the people that really love Jenn. I had the honor of meeting her really twice, that's all. But I felt immediately connected to her as soon as I started reading her work. And for a number of reasons, it was very difficult to figure out which poem of hers that I wanted to read. I knew I wanted to read one of her poems. So I ended up settling on Blades, which is the final poem in Psychic Party Under the Bottle Tree. And I just really admire how she used her lived experience, like as a window into vulnerability. Like I just felt like I knew her, and we did share something that comes out in this poem. So Blades. By a field up past Stowe, I prayed at the edge of an acre of new mown hay. When I opened my eyes, having finished my list, I saw thin black and gold striped snakes crawling along the tops of the shorn blades. I thought how light and scared they must be to move on those tips as they slithered toward the low sun away from me, searching for darkness and undergrowth. The whole field moved toward sundown, and I almost forgot how much I feared snakes. So that's what comes from praying. Long ago, I sobered up. More than half my life has been spent on the tip of that blade, bending as far as I can from the point. I am in awe of you, there with your chunky cut glass of rye, sipping one amber eyelash at a time. Here in this pub below the sidewalk, the wood is old oak, like a man, and dark. The walls are cool brick. Brass weapons hang, crossed blades, a shield like the sun. And I am honored to introduce Dorsía Smith Silva.
Thank you so much for introducing me. Thank you, Lisa and Becca, for having this wonderful, wonderful activity in honor of Jenn. I think she would be just so, honored and thrilled to know that we are celebrating her. I'm going to read a poem tonight called G is for Greenhood, which celebrates community and positivity, which is something that we are urgently in need of right now. G is for Greenhood. G is for Greenhood, for spring sitting on my shoulders, then fastening to eye level, chantus, gladiolas spinning, bowing in the distance, sense of greening until earth gets it right. Green that I can't keep to myself. Say, green belongs within reach, like an abstract of the sepal outside of the flower body. You wouldn't recognize me when I cradle green for fear of it becoming worn in many places. Even when morning lurks upside down, green, not this green, never hurts. Ask the taracos giving off green among drizzled leaves. Ask the grasshoppers that throw themselves against grass because it glistens. Ask wet green in my blood that hasn't forgotten spare green across homeland, where your green overlaps with mine. It's my pleasure to introduce Marcus Myers.
Hey everyone, sorry about the technical difficulties earlier. I'm going to read a poem that it's not exactly after her work, but definitely has a lot of kind of natural imagery, which is something that always stood out to me about Jenn's work. Along the banks of the Missouri River with my love. Walking here, it's beautiful and strange to want so much to gather material from the banks to shape my death mask. Hopeless fool, I know nothing about fashion and the funerary arts, but I see what I like to capture in photos. 12 years older than my wife, I'll make one only to cover the face of my quiet dying as we walk the gravel path here beside the big muddies, silver green and cloud blue regeneration. What needs and wants I have as the river runs through what's needing to fail or die with discretion, with dignity beneath the reel's rough bark beauty. To her, I won't mention of an evening sunset, what fibers I'll bend from the river to bind my skin and skull from brow to chin. The poorly structured canopy with trees of various heights and ages, which I wear with grace, with gratitude. And I'll list the species in case I go before hands have fastened the light and shadow of the leaves, bark, twigs, roots, and contours in place. Silver maple, bur oak, cottonwood, shellbark hickory, green ash, black willow, sycamore, American elm, river birch, box elder, hackberry, and sugarberry. Thank you.
Bear with me 1 second. I'm going to welcome Marjorie Tesser.
Thanks, Rebecca, and thanks, Lisa, and thanks, Notebook Collective, for this beautiful event and also this important fundraiser that I think Jenn would have been pleased as punch that you're doing this work, continuing her work. I have known Jenn, as Cindy Veach mentioned, for 8 years as co-editor with Cindy of poetry for Mom Egg Review, but I really knew her before then, initially just through her poems. We had published her work before I knew her personally. And now that she is not here in person, I am still enjoying spending time with her work. And I'm so happy to have heard all of your words in tribute to her and your renditions of her words. So I had a very pleasant afternoon trying to pick what to read to y'all tonight. It's hard to encapsulate Jenn's work in one poem, and so I didn't even try. But I thought this was an interesting one. I'm posting the link in case you want to read the whole thing. This was published in Ekphrastic Review, and it's 2 poems after Jodi Colella by Jennifer. And you can see the sculptures by Jodi Colella if you look at the link. And this is the first poem. It's called The Mother House. An ill-fitting web stretched over a mouth-sized hole bored into the back porch. Something lived in hollow wood, stripped gray by the salt air. Forlorn web, a whole family gone by first frost. I think I've always been alone in my own sweet way, always hungry, ate cold roast beef after birthing my daughter, after my son, smoked that first cigarette, its tip orange, hot in the winter night, right here on the porch. Me, steaming milk, signaling my compulsion to be outside of myself. Do you understand? Nothing fit after that, or ever again. Not even me in my own mossy cocoon of skin. This frail web barely stretched across the hole to its splintery rim, its messy lips. Some poor thing long ago tried to home here in my home. Thank you. The second poem in there is great also, but I'll leave that for you to read. And thank you everybody for your great words, and back to Lisa and Rebecca.
So many buttons to push.
I know. I know. So Lisa and I hadn't planned on reading anything because we thought we would run out of time, but we do have a little bit more time. So I think we're both going to read a poem to close us out. And I will let Lisa go first.
Sure.
Okay.
I also wanted to say that I just checked the fundraiser page and we exceeded our goal. We're at $1,035. So a huge shout out to everyone who donated, who shared, who showed up on this important day for this important fund. I'm going to read Ghostwriter from Jenn's Psychic Party Under the Bottle Tree. She read this in our when she was in conversation for the Notebooks Collective with Kathi Aguerro, and I have returned to it over and over again, and I'm going to hope that I don't cry during it because it's the most beautiful poem. Ghostwriter. That last hot day of fall, I watched my daughter finally turn away and look through the fogged backseat window of my car while 2 friends buckled in next to her told secrets. One little wet mouth cupped to a tender ear. My hands at 10 till 2, my eyes on each girl, reversed in the rearview mirror, all of us quiet. I idled the car near the school at the dead end of Ida Road. Last night's lightning storm flooded most of the street. Sewers overflowed, winds downed the maples, spilled their innards and the wires, some live little snakes, still dangerous, though dead. The car's leather seats were dark, ox blood, and soaked in expelled heat from all of us. It smelled of rubber and something electric, corroded. My daughter breathed on the window to make even more fog, drew things with her finger, hearts, stars, her name. And now we'll bring Becca back.
Thank you, Lisa. I was going to read an abecedarian that I wrote. I've been kind of processing my rage through abecedarians for some reason, and so this one is called Angry Abecedarian, for lack of a better word, but yeah, here it is. Atrocious how these men meter the sun, its rays needed to banquet the flowers and forest breathe. They make our lives a carnival, full of unpredictable swings, barkers and donuts fried in vats of oil. We want to be slippery, ermine, tasked with escape. Tell ourselves the fluorescent lights of the causeway are not a real galaxy. This we know. The end days are not a hex, but the willful execution of policy. Nothing is indispensable. Our lives, our children, our air. We want justice like water. Like our team captain says, it has come time to knife the opposition. I want to be kind, bright like a lemon, but these musty suits are content to let me burn. Are you nervous? Nauseous? Their vitriol, a constant spew, an obscenely toxic wind that burns our eyes. We need a potion, like a perfume, like a port brew, not from a quack, but from the women who will bestow upon us riot, revolt, and revolution. This raw sense of anger, sown by offense after offense, time to gather together, to undress the masters, unleash the vengeance, the venom. To vanquish, we whistle whistles and whistle, x-ray their chests to see if anything beats. You must gather your pitchforks, your go bags. The zombies drool for our brains, and we will not let them win. And I'm gonna bring Lisa back here. Closing words.
Some last words. I want to thank everybody here, the readers, for your time, the people who are here to listen, for your time and your attention, for everybody for your donations. Becca and I are really thrilled to be able to spend this time with you tonight and to be able to donate that money to support abortion access in Jennifer Marteilli's name and memory. Please follow us on social media and sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already. A lot of you are here because you have been in an In Conversation event or you have watched one, and we just think it's really cool to gather for poetry as a group. The world needs more of it. We will make a recording of this available soon. If you are on our newsletter, you'll probably see that. Otherwise, you can check our YouTube page. You're welcome to unmute and say goodnight to one another if you would like, and then we will say goodnight to everybody. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for organizing this,
Thank
Becca
you.
and Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
It's a great
Good
event.
night. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
What a
Thanks.
wonderful,
So
wonderful
much.
night.
Oh,
Wonderful
thanks,
evening.
Richard.
And wonderful. Everything you
Fabulous.
guys do is wonderful.
Thanks, everybody, for doing this.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Is that Vinny?
Yes,
Hi, Vinny.
Vinny,
I'm
hi.
glad you're here.
Hi.
that was wonderful.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much.
being.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.